But we would love to be able to, and frankly, they might as well do it soon.
Iran not seeing it that way. A tweet from the country's foreign ministry spokesman says, with the latest moves, the U.S. has closed the diplomatic channel forever. Diplomatic efforts continue, though, with American allies in the Mideast.
President Trump's point man on Iran, Special Representative Brian Hook, is touring Middle Eastern countries, including Saudi Arabia and Oman, before heading to Europe. Hook saying the U.S. wants other countries to help increase security at sea amid tensions between the U.S. and Iran in and around the Strait of Hormuz, a key waterway for transporting oil. Hook saying discussions will be held at this weekend's G20 summit in Japan.
Fox's Simon Owen. 4 more bodies of suspected illegal immigrants have been found in the Southwest, all thought to be victims of the heat. But a bill to provide $4 billion to help with the humanitarian crisis at the border appears to be stalling in the House of Representatives, stuck in the Rules Committee after changes demanded by some House members. The U.S. government has removed most of the children from a remote border patrol station in Texas, following reports that more than 300 children were detained there caring for one another with not enough food, water, or sanitation. A Texas congressperson says ICE has told her that just 30 children remain at that station. After spending 6 months aboard the International Space Station, 3 space travelers are home.
That puff of smoke, that means the soft landing engines have fired and the capsule is on the ground. So they did make it down a couple of seconds early.
The Soyuz capsule landing in Kazakhstan with American astronaut Anne McClain aboard. This is Fox News.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about the food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
When it comes to power and performance, nothing compares to Dodge. And right now at Cars Plus in MIT, you can save thousands on many Dodge vehicles in stock during our Dodge Performance Days. Like a new 2019 Grand Caravan SE, save $4,250, or save $6,150 on a new Durango SXT. Looking for more power? Take home a new Charger SXT Plus today for only $37,689, or save over $7,000 on a new Challenger GT. Get more power and performance at Cars Plus in MIT during Dodge Performance Days. Cars Plus, driven by you.
Charges have been filed in St. Louis in what police are calling the execution-style murder of a cop.
26-year-old Bonet Meeks is charged with first-degree murder and other counts in the killing Sunday of North County Police Cooperative 40-year-old officer Michael Langsdorff, who we're told confronted Meeks after the suspect allegedly tried to pass a bad check.
And during that confrontation, a struggle ensued between both of them.
Major Ron Martin.
Mr. Meeks was successful in executing the cop yesterday. And a good one.
Langsdorff leaves behind 2 sons and a fiancée. His alleged killer remains jailed. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
A jury in Southern California is recommending the death penalty for a man convicted of killing a family of 4 with a sledgehammer and then burying them in the desert. 62-year-old Chase Merritt was convicted earlier this month of killing the McStay family, including his former business partner. That family vanished in 2010. Their bodies were found about 3 years later. About 2 weeks, federal investigators say, before they'll be able to give us a preliminary report on what caused a skydiving plane to crash Friday in Hawaii, killing all 11 people on board. That same plane crashed in 2016 in California and was repaired. The NTSB checking to see if it was done right. Tiger Woods off the hook in a wrongful death lawsuit.
Attorneys for Tiger Woods announced Monday that the estate of Nicholas Imsberger voluntarily dismissed the golfer as a defendant. The lawsuit filed in Florida by Imsberger's parents continues against both the Woods Jupiter, the Florida restaurant Tiger invested in, as well as the Masters champ's girlfriend, who is the general manager of the establishment. The suit claimed that Woods contributed to Imsberger's death in a one-car crash last year by allowing him to drink to excess after a shift and then drive home, getting into a single-car crash with a blood alcohol level more than 3 times the legal limit.
Fox's Matt Napolitano. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data2Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is data to go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Your home is one of the most important investments you'll make in your life. At Nanbo Insurance, you can rest easy knowing that you're covered with reliable and affordable homeowners insurance. Nanbo makes it easy to protect what matters the most so you can enjoy the moments that matter the most. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, that's how I always start the program here, because the Second Amendment, like the other 9 items in the Bill of Rights, are very important, and we need a constant reminder of their importance. It also sets the tone for the program, which is of the conservative constitutional stripe. I believe in the rule of law and compliance therewith. When it comes to the Second Amendment, I usually am able to dredge up something somewhere that tells who's trying to take it away from us, who the champions of it are, and other things of interest to the gun rights folks out there in our international radio listening audience, all of whom can put their oar in on this subject simply by dialing 888-TALK, 888-8255, and you're on the air, or you will be on the air on Tall Tales after a friendly chat with none other than the real Joe Cruz. Yeah. Now guess who controls the button that turns on the applause? Yeah, the real Joe Cruz. So today I found something on Bearing Arms, which is a website for gunners. It's maintained by a gentleman named Tom Knighton. It's got a lot of good information on it. And today's piece is called Virginia Legislator Suggests Measure That May Actually Impact Gun Violence. The word actually has to be explained because Democrats are all over the place introducing bills that they say will impact on gun violence. And the ultimate result, if any of these bills became law, would be to duplicate what's already on the books in one form or another, or to make it harder for honest, law-abiding folks to keep firearms in their house in accordance with the Second Amendment. But for the left, for the Democratic left, that doesn't matter. It's not whether you have a proposal that will work, that will actually be effective. That's not what counts. It's that you try. That's what counts. A good example locally here, our war claims awards got hung up because of flaw in the congressional statute that Madeline Berdallo introduced. The guy that beat Madeline quite handily, Michael San Nicolas, introduced a bill that would fix the flaw and allow the money to start flowing. Well, that wasn't good enough because Speaker Tina Rose Munoz Barnes and our governor, Lou Leon Guerrero, had to, as Robert Underwood said, get to the front of the parade. So they announced that they're going to introduce a bill that would allow payment of the 300 claim or the 600 claims that have been adjudicated, pay them with local funds. And this did nothing but perhaps confuse people who think they might be entitled to a payout under the federal statute. It probably made St. Nicholas's life in Washington a little more difficult because his cohorts were more than likely saying, Michael, do we really need your bill 1365? I just read that the governor and the speaker of the Guam legislature are going to pay that out of local funds. So they did a lot of talking about what they were going to do, and they did a lot of virtue signaling. Oh, you know, we feel so bad for the war survivors, and oh, they went through so much, and oh, we love them all, and hey, you guys, are you listening? We're virtue signaling out there. They went through all of that. You know what the bill looks like? Let me see if I can show you what the bill looks like for our Facebook audience there. Here's what the bill looks like. For those of you who are not on Facebook, I'm holding up a blank sheet of paper because for all of the talk, no bill has been introduced. But the message is clear. Well, we're trying. We're trying to help the war survivors. So it's like the article I read yesterday. You know, that really, this isn't kindergarten. Taking a lot of art paper and then smearing paint all over it like a kindergartner doesn't make it art. You're not going to get patted on the head for doing that and saying, well, you know, it doesn't look like much, but oh, you tried. And that's where we are. And that's where the Democrats are with the whole gun violence subject. Completely divorced from reality. Let's put it this way. Let's say that we had a constitutional statute that would allow the United States government to pay fair market value for every single firearm floating around in the United States and its territories. And let's say that at the end of a period of a grace period, say 90 days, that every federal agent, every 1810 who is an armed federal agent would form a posse to go out with search warrants and find every single gun in the country, take them, tie them to a chain, and toss them all in the tossie. Would that work? Is that even arguably possible? No, there are so many guns in this country. You know, the history of the United States, go to a cowboy movie, go to movies about the Old West. The history of the United States has been kind of the history of firearms. So there are so many guns circulating now that it would be impossible to take them all out of circulation, regardless of how draconian the laws that the Democrats wanted to introduce would be. Now, a lot of those guns are properly registered, et cetera, come within the laws of the state of their owners and probably are okay, but a huge percentage of them aren't. Funny thing about gangsters in Chicago, I don't think Al Capone ever had a gun permit. I don't think Machine Gun Kelly ever took his machine gun in and had it registered. I don't think Bonnie and Clyde pay much attention to the firearms laws on the books then. John Gotti, I suspect that John Gotti was always packing, but never carried a firearms permit, even in New York. So even if you had these draconian laws, you're not going to get them away from the bad guys. You get them away from some of the good guys. But the really important thing is that the Democrats are trying. Something has to be done, so they're trying. So this article said that a state legislator in Virginia has an idea that might actually work. And let's see, is he a Democrat? No, he's a Republican, figures, right? Governor Ralph Northam has called a special session and is bound and determined to pressure legislators to adopt gun control in the wake of the Virginia Beach shooting. During that session, we should expect to see all kinds of harebrained schemes that will infringe on the rights of ordinary Virginians while having little to no impact on the criminals that represent the real threat. However, it seems GOP lawmakers have a plan to introduce a proposal that might make a dent. The Virginia Pilot, that's a newspaper, reports Republican Delegate David Yancey wants to bring a federal procedure to the state level that would crack down on illegal firearms trading. The national procedure, called Rule 35, encourages prisoners to tell police if they know who's selling stockpiles of stolen guns. According to the federal policy, if those offenders then give police information that could bring the criminals to justice, a judge could slash the inmates' sentences. Yancey says his idea won't infringe on Second Amendment rights. Of course not. Yancey's right. This legislation won't infringe on Second Amendment rights. The law only targets those who have stashes of stolen guns. Lawfully owned collections wouldn't be impacted at all, in theory. Anyway, of course, some might give up their gun-owning buddy to try to get some time off their sentence, even though their buddy bought all his firearms. But due to a rule existing at the federal level already, this wouldn't necessarily be new. However, if none of the serial numbers are reported as stolen, then there shouldn't be a problem. Yancey hopes his proposal will garner bipartisan support, and it should. I don't know. Democrats have their own definition of what is a good idea. To a Democrat, a good idea is one that a Democrat has. However, let's not expect Yancey's proposal to be a cure-all either. It's an effort to encourage criminals to turn on one another, which happens regularly, but it's not universal. Now, I give the author here credit for not using the word snitch. While there may be no honor among thieves, there can be loyalty, fear, or any number of other things that would pressure someone to remain silent. That's going to mean someone is still going to have stolen guns. It won't solve the issue, but something like this is far more likely to do some good than universal background checks that criminals will ignore anyway, since they buy their guns on the black market. Combating that will do a great deal more to prevent any perceived, quote, gun violence epidemic that the state may be dealing with than any other restriction anti-gun lawmakers could cook up. Most gun violence is committed by criminals. They are responsible for the vast majority of homicides, robberies, and rapes committed with a firearm each year. They also don't obey the laws and will continue to get guts regardless of supposed roadblocks. But going after the stashes of stolen guns, which tend to fuel the black market, will have a far broader impact. Not only that, but law-abiding citizens shouldn't have to worry. Their guns, all lawfully owned, are immune. Somehow, I don't foresee Virginia Democrats embracing the idea. Nor do I, but it is a good idea. And let's see, no, there's a Bob on the line. That isn't me, is it? No, I wouldn't have to call myself to get on the air. This is another Bob, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir, it's another Bob.
Another Bob, okay. Okay, another Bob, how are you doing?
Hello, Mr. Klitzkie. Hey, I just would like to ask your opinion for both myself and the listening audience. When the Second Amendment says, in order to maintain a well-armed militia. Am I getting that right? And how do you read that? I mean, what does that mean? Does this mean we should be armed as well as the police or the government? Or
Here's how it reads, Bob. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So there is some dispute over the meaning of the words well-regulated militia. I take the position that the well-regulated militia now is actually the National Guard because of a rather complicated explanation. But at the time the Second Amendment was added to the Constitution, each of the states had organized militias. They were like small state armies under the control of the government of the states. So the purpose of the Second Amendment was to protect those state militias from the national government. In fact, almost all of the Bill of Rights were to protect the states from the national government. And that's the reason we have a Second Amendment. Does that make sense, Bob?
Well, I'm learning. I didn't know that the National Guard was separate from the federal government.
Well, as I said, it's complicated. There are a couple of sections of the Constitution that relate to the National Guard. At Article 1, Section 8, Congress has the power under Article 1, Section 8 to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia. Organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. So the militia, as contemplated by the Constitution, are these state armies that can be called a federal service, but as state armies, they kind of have to subscribe to the discipline. That means the training prescribed by the national government. Now, that changed around the turn of the last century. And the way the National Guard is set up right now, every member of the National Guard, let's say the Guam National Guard, is actually the member of two organizations. He's a member of the Guam National Guard, which is a territorial organization, and he's also a member of a reserve component of the U.S. Army. The Army has two reserve components. One is called the Army Reserve, and the other one is called the Army National Guard of the United States. So every member of the Guam Guard is a member of the Army National Guard of the United States. That's where the money comes from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So although it's still under the control of the governor, unless it's federalized, it's supported and pretty much regulated by the national government. I warned you it's complicated, Bob.
Oh, yeah, very complicated. So the way I see into this is it's not the people, it's still the government.
Yes, yeah. Now, I'll have to say this. There's an alternative interpretation of the First Amendment, which, of course, is wrong because it's not the same as mine, that I call the musket over the fireplace theory of the militia. And that theory is, well, back in colonial times, every person living in the colonies had a musket that he kept over the fireplace. And when it was necessary, the governor would say, okay, come on, you guys, meet me down at, one if by land, two if by sea, etc. Meet me down in the village commons because we're going to fight the Indians or the British or the French or somebody else. I don't think my reading of history doesn't support that. Now, to further complicate matters, Bob, the word militia has been co-opted by other groups of pure civilians who call themselves the militia. And some of whom are pretty good folks, some of whom do some really strange things. But that isn't what militia means in the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I guess I have a lot more to learn. Thank you very much. I can't hear you very well, so
You can't?
please continue, but I'm going to hang up.
You can't hear me?
Not very well.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm speaking.
I can hear you great on the radio, but my phone conversation, the phone connection.
Oh, I got you. Okay, well, Bob, you said you had a lot to learn. Well, you've learned one of the most important lessons that anyone can learn, and that is if you have a question, call Tall Tales. And then the second thing is that if you feel like you want to learn something, it's 93.3 on your radio dial. You're bound to learn a lot right here, Bob, so thanks for calling. All right, so and I got Francis. Oh, Francis, I'm sorry, I pushed the wrong button. Call back, Francis. I pushed the red button instead of the connect button there. Call back, Francis. Sorry. Yeah, here comes Francis. Yeah, sorry, Francis. I reached over here and pushed the wrong button. Good afternoon, Francis.
Good afternoon, sir. I just wondered if you can help me out. Maybe a point of clarification on the 10th Amendment, if any of this includes any of the territories of the United States, please.
Well, a good place to start whenever you're interpreting the Constitution is by reading the Constitution itself. And here's what it says. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So Guam is not a state, so I'd have to say the 10th Amendment does not apply to Guam, Francis.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll work on it some more, and maybe if I have any more questions, I'll get back to you. Thank you, Uncle.
Okay, thank you for calling, Francis.
You're welcome.
Okay, a little bit more on that. When the Organic Act was adopted, there was text in the Organic Act that pretty much tracked most of the Bill of Rights. And there was a question, though, well, actually, with unincorporated territories, the big question is, does the U.S. Constitution apply to the territories ex proprio vigere, which means of its own force? And the answer is no. So the Organic Act, when first adopted, the text had, a freedom of speech and a freedom of religion and things like that. And there was a question then of the power of that language, and also a question of whether or not the so-called rule of presumptive adoption applied. The rule of presumptive adoption is a rule of statutory construction that holds that when a jurisdiction adopts the statute of another jurisdiction, it also adopts that other jurisdiction's case law or interpretation of the statute. But those questions were pretty well answered in 1968 in our elected governor law. So when the elected governor law was working its way through Congress, Representative Patsy Mink of Hawaii introduced what's called the so-called Mink Amendment. And the Mink Amendment said that, and there's a laundry list of items of the Constitution of the Bill of Rights that apply in the same manner that they apply in the states. So if we were to follow my approach to political status, which is work on what we've got. We've got a really good situation now. We could make it better if we worked with Congress to make it a better situation. And one of the things we could do would be to say, let's make the 10th Amendment. You have to touch it up a little bit, but let's make it apply in the territory of Guam. And if we did that, then the cases interpreting the 10th Amendment could at least arguably apply here in Guam. But it's hard to get people to think like that, because the people that speak up only want to talk about the politics of grievance. Okay, Real Joe is playing Dave Brubeck's Take 5. I'll be back in a minute, Tom, and I'll pick you up then.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic.
So here we are.
888-TALK. 888-8255.
Yeah, 888-8255. We're streaming live here on Facebook. Get on Facebook, put your comments in, call Tall Tales, be a part of the broadcast to our international radio listening audience. There's probably no greater honor than to be able to speak to the international listening audience. So before I took the break, I had Tom on the line. So Tom, good afternoon.
It is a great honor to talk to you again, sir.
Well, thank you, Tom. The honor's all mine.
Can you repeat the 10th Amendment again for me just real quickly?
I suppose I can. I can reread it. I don't know if I can.
Right.
I've got the second pretty well down. I don't need to look in my book for the Second Amendment. The powers.
The 10th Amendment.
I know. I said I'd have to read it. I haven't memorized it. I've pretty well got the Second Amendment down. I don't need to look at the book for that. But here's the 10th. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Well, that's my question to you is, I know we are not a state, but we are part of the people. So the last few words there should apply to us. We are part of the people, right?
You could make that argument, but you have to look at how the Constitution was developed, and you have to read the entire amendment to make. It's a little dangerous to take one clause out of a statute and say, well, this is what the whole statute means. But this is what it says: the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. So you remember we had 13 independent countries, and they got together and formed a country called the United States. And they started out with the Articles of Confederation, which had an almost non-existent national government. So then they had a constitutional convention, and in that constitutional convention, those 13 independent states or former colonies delegated much of their sovereign authority, or some of their sovereign authority, to the central government, which at the time was called the federal government. Can't do that anymore, you know that, Tom. So when the amendment says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Well, there isn't anything to reserve to the people of Guam because of the way the Constitution was constructed with delegated powers from the states.
Well, I was just thinking that the writers of the Constitution did not know that there will be a Guam in the future.
Yeah, and I've mentioned that before. You know, at the time the Constitution was promulgated, we were not an imperialist nation. In fact, that was the last thing that a lot of the framers wanted to happen. They didn't want to see an American empire. And at that time, if we had thought that we were going to be an imperialist country, we probably would have been a little more careful with the words that we chose. But the words that we chose are kind of the ones that we're stuck with. And that's why I said a little earlier, if we would follow the route that I think Guam should follow, that is to work for an even more advantageous relationship with the national government, we would do a kind of a Mink Amendment on the 10th Amendment and have Congress adopt a statute that says the 10th Amendment shall apply to the territory of Guam as though it were a state, which would then mean that the case law interpreting the 10th Amendment would be likewise applicable here. Does that make sense, Tom?
Yeah, I don't mean to give you a headache, but we could make the same argument of the birthright citizenship. I could say that Barack Obama is not a natural-born citizen because he might have been born in Hawaii, right? But was he born naturally? Does the Constitution, does the makers of the Constitution know that there will be cesarean section in the future? Maybe what they meant is a naturally born American, born by nature, because they didn't know that they can birth a child through.
Well, Tom,
an operation.
I think you're incorrect on your history. What kind of birth are you talking about?
When we say if a person is naturally born.
No. What
naturally born American?
And what were you saying? What kind of birth were you talking about?
Well, a person born by an operation or cesarean section.
Okay, cesarean section. Now, where did that come from? A cesarean section. Where do you think that term came from?
From Sicily, maybe?
From Caesar, from ancient Rome. So I think at the time the Constitution was adopted, people knew about that form of birth. But that isn't what it means.
Yeah.
Natural born means born within the sovereign territory of the United States.
Yeah, okay. So,
okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to. Sorry, I gave you another headache.
Oh no, it's no headache, and I'm not the governor, so if callers want to call and put the pressure on me, I'm fine. I never go into the kitchen unless I'm prepared to take a lot of heat.
You notice how they just slammed the door on the reporters when they had that breakfast meeting at Adelup?
Secret meetings, closed-door meetings. Yeah, don't you think, Tom, that the open government law should apply to senators when they do that?
Yeah, and the governor, when she was campaigning, she said that I want this government to be transparent.
Yeah.
But when she slammed the door on the reporters are representing us.
Yeah.
The reporters are supposed to report to the people what they hear in those meetings. But no, she told the reporters to leave, and then they shut the door.
See, I blame some newspaper photographers and TV cameraman, because when Lou was saying, I'm going to have a government that's transparent, nobody stuck around behind her to see if her fingers were crossed, because apparently her fingers were crossed, and she never meant that to start with.
Well, I tell you, a lot of our political people, they need to get the dictionary out and they need to start defining the words transparency, what it really means,
True enough.
Okay, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks for calling, Tom.
Bye.
Okay, so Second Amendment, a deviation over there to the 10th Amendment for the moment, which was good. discussing parts of the Constitution is always a good use of our time here in Tall Tales. Constitutional literacy fits right into that old saw that the real Joe Cruz is always saying that goes like, real Joe Cruz, while a Constitution may set forth rights and liberties.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, continue.
No, go ahead.
You're doing fine, sir.
After you. Well, a Constitution may set forth rights and liberties.
Only the citizens can maintain and guarantee those freedoms. Active and informed citizenship, it's not just a right, it's a duty.
Yeah, very good, real Joe Cruz.
Thank you, number 5 Republican.
Number 5 Republican.
Paid for by the committee to elect Joe Cruz and Bob Klitzkie.
Oh, okay. Very good, real Joe Cruz. You know, I had a campaign committee when I ran for senator. E-gangs Klitzkie.
Oh, nice.
E-gangs Klitzkie, yeah. Okay, so next we go to Zemi Ikotny. And this portion of the program has turned into a time when I see what kind of BS the Daily News runs instead of an editorial. The Daily News often, almost most of the time, runs something from Gannett News Service, USA Today, a guest columnist, the USA Today's board of contributors, something like that. Anything to avoid writing an editorial about local issues, as though there aren't any local issues to talk about right now. You know, you could write a whole article just about trees. You could do a whole editorial just about trees. And what does the Daily News do? Oh yeah, so the Daily News takes these editorials or columns or whatever from USA Today, Gannett News Service, whatever, and runs them, and they're all the same. You don't even need to read them because you know exactly what they're about before you start to read them. Let's bash Trump. Not that bashing Trump is doesn't necessarily bad writing, but, you know, talk about a one-trick pony. If for some reason Trump were not the president tomorrow, even USA Today would have to start borrowing editorials from somewhere else because they wouldn't have anything to say. So here's today's offering. Trump's wobbly signals on Iran. This is Tom Nichols, special to USA Today. I don't know why President Donald Trump backed off a strike on Iran at the last minute, but we should be glad that he did. Well, you know, maybe it's not so bad. They finally found a way to say something about Trump that's not derogatory. But I'm not going to waste any time on this. If it's not about local issues, for Tall Tales purposes, it's not an editorial. It's just words on paper that someone used down at the Daily News editorial boardroom to fill a news hole. It shouldn't even, it doesn't even rate being called an editorial. Okay, now the Post has a real editorial. And it had a real editorial yesterday. It's a very good editorial yesterday. Senators shouldn't hold secret meetings on the buildup. And my regret yesterday was that I could only give the Post one blue star because they rated more. Okay, here's the Post today. Senators will cause job, income, and income losses, and they know it. Okay. And there's a little squib here from Senator Tello Taitigui. If there is a pause, and it's the military that's pausing it, then the economic impact will happen to them. And later on in the editorial, she's quoted again. As far as economic impact, if it's bad, it's justifiable because we're protecting our culture, Taitigui said. And here's another one. If there's a pause and it's the military that's pausing it, then the economic impact will happen to them. So I have another first that I'm going to comment on here. You know, for the first time in the history of Guam, we have 10 females in our legislature. The better to meet behind closed doors, real Joe Cruz. Yeah. And for the first time in the history of Guam, we have an openly pro-abortion governor. And for the first time in the history of Guam, we have an openly homosexual lieutenant governor. And now, for the first time in the history of, well, maybe not, but today, at least today, we have an openly dingbat senator, Tello Taitigui. Yeah. Tello really distinguished herself, didn't she? The first, as you were, an openly dingbat senator. I got to say, though, that given some of the rhetoric that I've heard about the buildup, about the tree, about the programmatic agreement, about the buildup in general, although Tello won, she just won by an eyelash, as it were. Okay, here's the editorial. There are livelihoods at stake if and when the military pauses construction of the live fire training range complex, which is one of the facilities needed to bring in almost 5,000 Marines to their future Guam base. When projects are paused, workers' paychecks get cut or are placed on hold. Some workers will be furloughed or let go. The Guam stores and small service subcontractors that supply materials and services for these projects will not get paid. When their checks from these projects stop coming in, the Department of Revenue and Taxation will see its tax collections drop. When GovGuam's tax collections drop, they make up for it by raising taxes. Meanwhile, impacted workers and subcontractors' families will curtail their spending in the local economy, or worse, they might transport their skills away from Guam to where their services are needed. These are just a few examples of the impacts 13 Guam senators will cause by pressuring the governor to ask the Department of Defense to halt the projects. The Pentagon doesn't have to listen to the governor, but these senators may need to be reminded that this military buildup was signed between two nations, Japan and the United States, under the Obama administration in 2012. Now, under Trump, there are some sectors in the administration that want to shift defense spending from one program or military installation to another. Not to mention that senator from Hawaii, Real Joe Cruz, who put us on the Schatz list. Remember that? So we are firmly ensconced on the Schatz list right now. If Trump administration decision makers are looking for an excuse to transplant some parts of the buildup or funding away from Guam, these senators have just given them a way out, which of course is exactly what some of them want to do. There has been lobbying by other states to invite defense projects to their home states, and that's where the Schatz list comes in. The military has accommodated partial pauses to some of the projects. Certain places where ancient artifacts were found have been cordoned off. Construction has been halted at the site of a rare tree and its surroundings. The government of Guam has agreed to accept money, $12 million bucks, for the construction of the Guam Cultural Repository. Okay, short break here, and I'll be right back to take you up to the big halftime show that starts at 5 o'clock, 1700.
In illness and in wellness, Calvo's Select Care is health care that is there for you. That's why over 80% of the Guam medical community places their trust and insures with us. We offer our members wellness and fitness programs for a healthier lifestyle and provide a comprehensive medical network on and off island to help members from unexpected illnesses. Contact Calvo's Select Care today for more information.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Where do you get this music, Real Joe Cruz?
I'm not sure, sir.
You're not sure?
No, sir.
In other words, you don't know.
It's from the past.
It's good music. I really like it, yeah. Very suitable for tall tales. Okay, so going on with the editorial here. The military has accommodated partial pauses to some of the projects. Certain places where ancient artifacts were found have been cordoned off. Construction has been halted at the site of a rare tree and its surrounding. I guess it's probably fair to say that sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? Okay, I'm going to interrupt this. I got Dave Sablon on the line. Good afternoon, Dave.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. Great show.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that subject up through the Jenny Cottony segment of your show here regarding the quote-unquote pause on the military construction because of artifacts that they found on the site. My understanding is that there are regulatory protocols. I believe the military is following all of that, just as we would if we were going to build, let's say, a hotel. I do recall some years ago when the Nico Hotel was being constructed, they found some, bones and ancient artifacts. And what they did was they invited the Historic Preservation Group in. They excavated the area and created another memorial site next to the hotel, away from the construction site. And that was it. Everybody was happy. So I believe, as you mentioned earlier, that, construction has been halted at the site where some of these artifacts were found, which is the protocol that is required under the regulations. So what is the pause supposed to be about then? Is it really that they want to stop the construction completely? That's already been debated and discussed years ago when I think then Senator Judy Guthertz said, we don't want it over at Poggett. We want it over the Northwest Field. And that's what the military did, because it was one of the three sites that they looked at, even though it wasn't the best site, but under the environmental impact assessment or statement, the government usually looks at three possible sites, and so they took the second site up in Northwest Field, and that's where we are now. So I'm not sure what the senators are trying to do here, what the governor's trying to do, but this agreement, as you said earlier, was signed years ago. In fact, I think it was actually signed during the George Bush administration in 2006, and so it's been years that we've been in the making. They've had so much time to discuss and debate this. I think it's time to just move on because national security is going to trump everything, no pun intended.
Well, what's going on, Dave, is that we have some senators who are virtue signaling, knowing that the more often that they can use the words colonialism, culture, and tomorrow in their remarks on camera and to the newspaper, the more virtuous they appear, at least in their own minds. And then we have some senators who just don't want the buildup no matter what. They don't like the buildup. They don't like Marines. They don't like soldiers. They don't want any part of it.
But who do they represent then, Bob? Because I was just at a funeral this morning, and I was talking to a lot of people about this, and the vast majority, in fact, probably all of them that I talked to, said, "What are they trying to do? We need this, military buildup. We've got jobs in the line coming to our shores. We've got, we need to be supporting this, and it's been debated, discussed, like I said, and we're moving forward. We're getting the money in. I'm glad President Trump is in office to, give us that money and keep it coming so we can do this buildup. National security is at stake here. And Guam is, as we have always said, is at the tip of the spear. And that's why they chose Guam over Hawaii and other places in the U.S., excuse me, because of the fact that, 1 or 2 days in reaching hot spots in Asia makes a lot of difference in winning a battle.
True enough, Dave. But you see what the flaw in your argument is that it's logical, and the game here with the senators, they started out with halt, and then they compromised amongst themselves and they backed up to pause. But reason and logic are not the governing factors with that group, especially with the halt group. It's emotion.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when emotion and reason collide head on, so often emotion trumps. And besides that, it's so much easier, it's so much easier just to spout off, the things that, that you're emotional about than to actually sit down and compose a reasonable position and articulate it.
In addition to that, Bob, the question is, who do they represent? I mean, they should represent the people, and it's the people that have already spoken saying, we want these jobs, we want the military buildup, we want our island to be, clean and beautiful, and the military seems to be very, pro that. And so, what is it that is causing them? And I understand what you're saying, and I think we're kind of repeating ourselves here. But there's no need to stop this or pause because there's really no end result solution, so to speak. If they want to stop it completely, then they're going to lose that battle.
So you see, what it really boils down to is a question that I ask here on Tall Tales from time to time, Dave, and that is, how much time should an elected official spend scratching his own itch? And that's what some of them are doing. They're using their public office to scratch their own itch, just like our governor, who is pro-abortion to the max. She's scratching her own itch by assigning Jane Flores the job of going out and finding an abortionist, because we're in crisis now. We haven't had an abortion here.
Why don't she send Jane Flores to find a medical examiner? That's more important, and we need that versus an abortionist.
Because that's not Lou's personal agenda. That's what I mean by scratching your own itch. She wants to scratch her own itch. It's really sad that the priorities are all mixed up here. This abortionist. I mean, but what are we promoting here? A culture of death? We should be promoting life and joy of bringing babies into the world, because there are people that want to adopt them if they're not wanted by their mother or their parents. Well, Dave, I think the reason that Lou hasn't gotten involved with trying to find the medical examiner, because she's afraid that if we hired one, people would accuse her of practicing a culture of death. I got the halftime show coming up, Dave.
All right. You take care, Bob.
Good to talk to you. Thank you.
Sure. Bye.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
lighting up the Florida skies. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. SpaceX, within the last half hour, has blasted its Falcon Heavy rocket into space.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Minutes later, the side booster rocket successfully landed upright at Cape Canaveral. The main booster rocket, however, missed the landing on a barge at sea. The spaceship itself has already begun deploying into orbit 24 communication satellites. Earlier, a Russian Soyuz space capsule landed in Kazakhstan, bringing American astronaut Anne McClain and 2 colleagues home from the International Space Station.
Down just to the southeast of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, Oleg Kononenko, David St. Jacques, and McClain back on planet Earth.
NASA's Mission Control. Iran says the latest moves by the Trump administration have closed the channel on diplomacy with the U.S. forever. President Trump ordering new sanctions on Iran Monday.
Who knows what's going to happen? I can only tell you we cannot ever let Iran have a nuclear weapon, and it won't happen.
Fox's John Roberts.
The president is using the same tactics that he used with Kim Jong-un of North Korea to try to bring Iran to the negotiating table for the very first time, targeting the top of the political and religious food chain in Iran. The Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin, said that some of these sanctions were in the works prior to the shoot-down of that U.S. drone last week. Some of them were added in response to it.
Illinois is going to pot, about to become the 11th state to make it legal to use marijuana recreationally. Governor Pritzker planning a signing ceremony today for the bill that would allow Illinois residents to possess up to an ounce of weed at any one time. Asian stocks closing Tuesday lower. Dow futures are down about 60 points. On Monday, the Dow added 8, but the Nasdaq lost 26. This is Fox News.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
This is Ronnie. Ronnie is about to break his piggy bank.
Come on, piggy bank.
Ronnie wants to upgrade his smartphone.
And this piggy's gonna help me.
If Ronnie had signed up for GTA's handset payment option, he could have selected a new smartphone with an affordable monthly plan.
I could have what?
Exactly. Sign up for HBO at GTA and don't break the bank.
I'm sorry, piggy bank.
Terms and conditions apply. GTA, we start with you.
For the first time ever, an Iraq war veteran will be awarded the Medal of Honor today.
David Bellavia was an Army staff sergeant who fought in the bloodiest battle of the Iraq War, the Battle of Fallujah. Bellavia provided cover for his squad to escape while he cleared out a house full of insurgents.
It's about survivability. It's about coming home. I thought of, my wife, my baby. I thought of my parents.
Bellavia shared reflections of the firefight at a recent Army news conference.
It's about survivability. It's about coming home. And it's about achieving mission success.
The Medal of Honor is the highest military award for acts of valor. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
Federal safety investigators say they want tougher rules for skydiving operations following Friday's crash in Hawaii of a skydiving plane that left 11 people dead. The National Transportation Safety Board says, among other things, they'll be looking into the quality of repairs done on that plane following an earlier crash in 2016. A search is on for a missing University of Utah student, Mackenzie Lewick, last seen a week ago after flying back from a funeral in California.
What makes this case complicated for police, Mackenzie is an adult and there is no evidence of foul play. Detectives are limited in what and where they could search, in particular things like phone records, social media accounts, and bank records. The longer Mackenzie is missing, the more access they will have when approaching a judge for search warrants on her social media and other accounts. Police say both Lyft and the driver are cooperating. Since Monday, police say they have been in a daily contact with Mackenzie's family. They're still calling this a missing persons case, not a criminal case. In North Salt Lake, Aaron Cox, Fox News.
Lewick's phone has been turned off since she went missing, and her friends say her car is still in the driveway. Police in Chicago have released hundreds of files from the investigation into Jussie Smollett's claim that he was attacked by 2 men, including video showing for the first time the actor wearing what appears to be a noose. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
I'm always so grateful that we have that big halftime show here to break up the two halves of Tall Tales. There it was again today, another stellar show. The marching band, the drill team, the synchronized card section in the grandstand, the barrage of cannon fire at the end. It really doesn't get any better than that. So I'm going back here to Jemmy Ikotny, still working with a Post editorial, which brought on some comments from our international radio listening audience. It's a good editorial. Picking up with this, the military has accommodated partial pauses to some of the projects. Certain places where ancient artifacts were found have been cordoned off. Construction has been halted at the site of a rare tree and its surroundings. The government of Guam has agreed to accept money, $12 million, for the construction of the cultural repository, which is being built at the university to showcase properly stored artifacts and other culturally and historically significant projects found during the build-up construction. There's a real irony here. It's not ironic that we're seeing the politics of grievance. And that's what's motivating many, if not most, of the 13 senators that are pushing this resolution, the politics of grievance. So imagine this. Senator X wakes up in the morning, walks into the bathroom, looks at, I was going to say his or herself, but I know better than that now, walks into the bathroom, that senator walks into the bathroom and looks at themself in the mirror and said, what am I going to bitch about today? Let's see, let me think here. I gotta figure out something to complain about. The politics of grievance. And of course, the fundamental target for grievance is someone that can't fight back. So oftentimes the grievances are levied at the, quote, federal government. And I've already explained on more than one occasion that contrary to the thought process of the grievance politicos, there is not a building on the mall in Washington, D.C., with the Doric columns and the fancy marble steps and all that stuff, with an inscription over the portico that says, the Screw Guam office. There is not an office in Washington with hundreds of bureaucrats whose mission is to screw Guam at every turn. If you listen to the politics of grievance, you might conclude that. But there's an irony here with this whole buildup. All of the rights, all of the soapboxes that the grievers are relying on are actually functions of federal law. It's the federal law that required the programmatic agreement and the the record of decision and these other things. The government just doesn't come in and say, we don't care what you want. We're going to go through these processes that solicit comments all the way along the line. We're going to work with your SHPO, State Historical Preservation Office. These are all things that the great enemy has provided for this work, for this buildup. And like the editorial says, who is going to kick in $12 million for this repository for cultural artifacts? Now, the grievers would be much happier saying, no, we've got to leave them in place and cancel the buildup. Now, you know how much attention people have paid to these important relics over the last 75 years, right? How many times did any one of the senators go out tromping through the boonies, to find some pottery shards? I can tell you the answer to that. Never. And nobody cared about it at all until it became a device to take some shots at the military, at the Marine Corps, as you were. Okay, so, and the editorial goes on, despite these efforts, the senators want the buildup stonewalled. Let's not kid ourselves. Halting the firing range project is stonewalling the military buildup. Absolutely. It's trying to put the skids under it. The Guam Daily Post asked senators at their press conference Monday, what about the impact to the island's economy? What about people who would lose their income? Wouldn't the government of Guam lose tax income too? These are all good questions. Without giving a response, Senator Talina Nelson, who is leading the resolution that calls for a pause on the firing construction, stood up at the press conference call Friday morning and said, let them eat cake. No, that's my ad lib again. Yeah, Talina Nelson, better known as Maria Antoinette, stood up and said, let them eat cake. Now, what that story actually says is, stood up the press conference she called Monday morning, signaling the end of media questions. How dare you come in here and think you can ask me questions? Don't you know I'm the vice speaker? Don't you know who I am? What business is it of yours, what we do? You're just the public. Senator Tello Taitigui did volunteer to answer. Now, remember, Tello is the most recent openly dingbat senator that we have in the legislature. Senator Tello Taitigui did volunteer to answer, but her response showed a lack of care or understanding for those in the private sector whose incomes and jobs will be hurt by what the senators are trying to accomplish. Quote, as far as economic impact, if it's bad, it's justifiable because we're protecting our culture. Yeah, so the big C word, as I keep mentioning, if you're going to have a microphone in front of you, use the words colonialism, culture, and what was the other one? Colonialism, culture, and there's a third one here. It'll come back to me in a second. But that's all you have to do. This is a complete get-out-of-jail-free card. We're protecting our culture, so pay no attention to these people who are going to lose their jobs. They should, if anything, they should be grateful because we're protecting our culture. Oh, yeah. How could I forget? Chamorro. So if you're going to make a speech, Mani luhuds and mani nahu, guawasi pap Klitzkie na ita beha, pagunai be kuntusi hamzu toro ni I kultura, then I tauta chamorro. Yeah, and just keep repeating those things over and over again. It's a sure key to success. I don't think so. But, you know, it's the politics of 40 years ago, and I've remarked on more than one occasion that when people run for office now, some of them, most of them, the first thing they do is find somebody with a 1972 playbook and borrow it and follow it to a T. So the culture, chamorro, colonialism, work those into whatever you're going to say. So, of course, when Tello said, as far as economic impact, if it's bad, it's justifiable because we're protecting our culture. And then she went on to say, if there's a pause and it's the military that's pausing it, then the economic impact will happen to them. In the real world, the impact of halting the firing range project ripples way beyond the military base gates. In the 1990s, when tourism and defense spending slowed down, many families felt it. Some left Guam. As for the military contractors, they will be fine doing other projects in other places and for other clients. For the little guys and gals who most senators tell you they're most concerned with, the little guys and gals in the local economy whose jobs and services are tied to the ongoing military buildup, a pause will hurt their pockets right away. They don't have a variety of other projects to rely on. Like defense contractors can pack up and do jobs elsewhere. They will be. There's no doubt about it. The senators we elected know it. Okay, so let me see here. I got Vince on the line, and then I guess you opened up the Tom line, huh? Is this our Tom came back for a rewrite? Okay, let's start out with Vince. Afternoon, Vince.
Good afternoon, sir. Half a day.
Half a day.
So appreciate you, refereeing all the various issues that Guam has to deal with. Do find it a little confusing listening to the headline news and then listening to some of the callers' concerns, because it almost feels like there's a disconnection between what the legislature feels is important and what the people of Guam might be worrying about this week. I mean, you were at one point in time involved with the police department, were you not?
Yeah, I was about 30 years ago.
And it does seem like the police officers in the street are not surprised about the violence and a lot of the drug issues that seem to be affecting our island. There's a lot of concern that teenagers are losing their way and spending a lot of time in the mall, assaulting security guards or committing suicide in the villages because of lost loves. But our senators, I guess, have a tough job because they worked really hard on legislation to save trees up there in Retidian and deal with radon in our homes. But there's just this whole feeling like they're perhaps just missing the boat. This is a really violent month, a really violent and terrible week. 40 families lost their jobs at GRMC this past couple of weeks. There looks like there's going to be about 100 more families losing payroll, their ability to survive. But the senators want to talk about some esoteric issues. I mean, when you were a police officer roaming the mean streets of Guam, if you heard senators making flowery speeches about how great Guam is, how would you feel if you were having to deal with stabbings and guys wanting to get suicide by cop every day in the streets? Is the question, I guess, is vague. Is do you feel the disconnection, or am I off base?
No, I do, and I've kind of made a career out of pointing out that disconnection, Vince. And as far as cops are concerned, I wasn't a cop. I was legal advisor for the police department. I did associate with cops on an everyday basis, but I think you've called it. I think you're exactly right that cops, I think, feel like they're on their own. There aren't enough of them, and they're not getting the kind of support they should get. And then if they read the headline news, you see a machete attack on a group of citizens, and the governor said, well, it was blown out of proportion. So I think you're right on there, Vince. There is a serious disconnect between the people in the legislature and the people that put them there.
And so, since we agree, as usual, and you having a whole lot of administrative expertise, I think you've dealt with things in the education department as well as at the police department and down at the legislature. So you have a great sense of how government can work. And I know you've been frustrated yourself, but since you have your own radio show, I'm assuming you still have some hope. And I guess the question is, what can our disconnected community do to shake the cobwebs out of our government leaders' heads? Because there are people getting violently attacked in our villages, in our homes, and I don't think it's been blown out of proportion. This is an extraordinarily difficult time for real people, and we're not even talking about the economic impact of the layoffs that are occurring, even as supposedly our economy is supposed to be getting better. What mechanism can the people of Guam who feel disconnected take? I mean, if you say participate in government, well, that seems to be the problem right now.
Well, here's my first fix, and it's not an overnight fix, Vince. We need a part-time legislature. We don't need a full-time legislature like what we have right now. And the best demonstration of the correctness of my argument is what we have right now. A lot of folks run for the legislature not because they want to be senators and perhaps operate in the public interest. They run for senator because what they really would like to be and think they ought to be are princes and princesses. But we don't have that office, so senator is the next best thing. So you get elected senator. You can go on junkets. You can have a fancy office. You can hire a staff of.
That's right. A bunch of them went to Taiwan recently. While everybody was getting stabbed and tasered, they went to Taiwan.
Yeah. So if you're a senator, you get a fancy office. A footman, a manservant, a maidservant, on and on. I've seen senators go to functions and have one of their staff members hold an umbrella over their head. So, as long as we have that mentality, the things are probably not going to get better because the incumbents their only interest is making sure they can hang on as long as they possibly can. Whereas if we had a part-time legislature, we'd have real people with real interests who haven't given up whatever careers they might have had and don't plan on making a career out of being a politician. That's the first thing, Vince. The second thing is this, that everybody needs to tell everybody in government, all of our citizens need to grab people in the government and say this: what we need is an effective, efficient government operating within the rule of law on at least a break-even basis. We don't need to send 100 people to FESPAC. We don't need to send a soccer team to, Timbuktu or something like that. We're spending money like we have a printing press instead of spending it on the basic, like cops, schools, and hospitals.
I'm here and I'm thinking about the $44 million that they're actually taking that money from the Tourist Attraction Fund. How do you feel about the GVB having access to that kind of money, basically without any oversight from Bob Klitzkie?
Well, of course, you said the key word there, oversight by Bob Klitzkie ought to be the sine qua non of any government spending, right?
Well, that sounds a little despotic, but I'm sure you'll be benign.
A benevolent despot, certainly, yeah. Well, I think the whole GVB thing needs to be looked at, because what are they doing with that tourist attraction fund? They're taking a huge group to Japan, as though nobody in Japan knows where we are. You know, it's just a junket.
Well, I think the junket part is they're also apparently subsidizing the cost of a lot of these planes coming in. So whatever benefit we're getting from their marketing is being underwritten by kickbacks that GVB apparently feels it has to do in order to keep the Japan market going. But the call is really about, I think, our government leaders who have $1 billion in our general fund to play with, and their mind seems to be away from the welfare, safety, and health of the people in the streets of Guam. So now that we've come to this realization this week, and it's only Tuesday, I guess, let me throw in some of the suggestions in case anybody's frustrated and are wondering if we're just going to talk about solutions that are going to have to wait to another election. Tomorrow night at the Tumuning Mayor's office is another chance for a rabid crowd of angry people, citizens, to come out and enumerate the times that they have been violated in their own villages, in their own homes, maybe attacked in their cars by people that don't seem to fear the rule of law. And fear is kind of the big issue, because, I mean, I think it's okay to fear God, and it's okay to fear your dad if you've done something wrong. But they don't seem to fear the governor or the legislature of Guam, because apparently they are pretty benign. And the benign neglect that's occurring in the villages is resulting in people arming themselves with guns. So there are many residents of Tumuning who apparently have weapons. I sure hope they know how to aim them properly, because otherwise we're going to have some little children getting their heads shot off if they wander into the wrong yard. But the people of Guam who are angry and can shoot well might want to go down to the Tumuning Mayor's office at 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Let me see if I got this right. 6 o'clock tomorrow, Tumuning Mayor's office. Bring pitchforks and torches.
I think that, and maybe bring a couple of Frankenstein monsters.
Okay.
Because I think that's what makes good news.
Okay.
The media needs to, I think, maybe get its. Honestly, the media's been doing a great job of printing all the bad news. It just seems to be that some of our leaders don't think, they think the media is blowing it out of proportion. And I'm not sure, if this is fake news. I do think that some of the people that are going to be there and the people that were at the Manila Mayor's office, they don't think it's fake when they're being threatened in their own homes. So sort of, I guess, just an angry mob coming together with pitchforks and guns and then complaining about, life-threatening situations. I'm not sure where we go after that, except perhaps to the same place that they went in Hong Kong recently, where they had a similar government that was out of touch, and actually in Beijing. They just marched in the streets with millions of people that were potentially going to get shot by communist soldiers, but they bravely marched on. I'm not sure they're going to accomplish anything, but we're not accomplishing anything right now, I think, by letting the government think that radon is the most important healthcare crisis on our island. I mean, I know it's probably a law that needed to be written a long time ago, but it's unfortunate it was the breaking news response of the legislature to the stabbings and the violent crime that occurred over the weekend, and it was not appropriate. It's not going to solve our island's current problems, which the police would say are not new, that these have been all going on. It's just that we're more aware of it now because it's hitting closer to home. But I think the frequency by which these violent crimes are occurring speak to a very real need for the governor and the legislature to do something more than go to Taiwan or go to the States and go march in the streets of New York in a Pride festival.
I agree, Vince.
It's easy to criticize that because it was very inappropriate for that to be the highlight of their weekend.
Coming up on the 7th inning stretch, Vince, so thanks a lot for calling.
Thank you, sir.
So after the 7th inning stretch, I've got Tom and Joe on the line. Tom, it's your second time at bat, so I'm going to let Joe step into the box first, and then we'll get to Tom.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
A 7th inning stretch coming to you from Wrigley Field in Chicago. Okay, so going to the phones here, I'm going to start out with Joe and then Tom after that. Good afternoon, Joe. You're not the real Joe Cruz, are you, Joe?
No, but I do want to say there's no crying in baseball, right?
There's no crying in baseball, that's for sure.
Oh, no. Well, then I guess I can just complain. Well, regarding the radon thing, there is, I think the reason why they brought up and they got traction is because there's an ongoing conference at the Hyatt up until the 28th for the environment. That's probably why it got traction. But regarding the out-of-control social scene on the island of Guam, I would say the first step would be respect your elders. You emphasize that, we're losing a lot of our elders. So the next set of elders, the next generation down, they're still getting used to the idea that they're the elders. I think we just need to emphasize, hey, that you, Uncle Bob, you're one of our elders. We need to respect our elders. And
yeah, I'd be the last guy who would try to persuade you not to respect your elders, being one myself.
And also, we have to get, some elders have to think that as an elder, they, give a little of their time to the young ones, if you have time to spare, because the young ones really will learn to appreciate that as they get older. So that's I would say that's where we start, because it really emphasizes the respect of on a two-way street towards the older generation and towards the younger generation, because the people in the middle really they're just trying to live their life in what they feel is a rat race, and so yeah, just respect your elders. And,
well, Joe, when it comes to young people, I'm going to quote Mark Twain talking about young people. Mark Twain said, "Youth is such a wonderful thing. It's a pity that it's wasted on the young."
I think that's to do with wisdom. What would you do if you knew what you know now back then, right?
Really.
Anyway, thanks a lot for your time there, Uncle Bob, and have a good day.
Okay, Joe. Thank you. That was another Joe. All you out there, all you folks out there in our international radio listening audience, by now I think are thoroughly familiar with the voice of the real Joe Cruz. But in case you're not, that was not the real Joe Cruz, right, real Joe Cruz?
That is correct, sir.
Very good, real Joe Cruz. Okay, so the Tom line is open. Good afternoon again, Tom.
How do you know it was I? It could be the concentration Tom that called.
Yeah, well, when real Joe Cruz opens the Tom line, it's it's like Forrest Gump's mother and a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Anyway, I will bring my Mercedes over to the Tamuning Mayor's office tomorrow.
All right.
But anyway, I just don't understand our senators. Don't they realize that the best way to protect our culture is to protect those artifacts and those ancestral remains. Take them out of the ground and let's put them in a controlled environment in the repository. I just totally disagree with leaving it on site. Because if we leave it underground, the elements is going to destroy it, and eventually it's going to turn into dust.
Tom, I'm going to introduce a new term into the conversation. Okay.
Okay.
The new term is sacred cow, and here's Webster's definition of a sacred cow: one that is often unreasonably immune from criticism or opposition. That's a sacred cow. Oh, you can't say that about that. That's a sacred cow. So these pottery shards and other relics that have been laying out in the boonies for a couple thousand years are sacred cows. And anyone who would dare say anything that, without using the word ooh, when he's talking about these things, would be guilty of attempting to slay the sacred cow. But I would say this: those things have been out in the boonies for how many thousands of years, and how injurious was that to the people of Guam? How badly did that hurt the people of Guam? Who can say, my life would have been so different if someone had gone out in the boonies and found some of those pottery shards, and I could have seen them when I was a teenager. There's stuff out in the boonies that has been there for a long, long time. I'm not going to say so what, but I will say that the 13 grievance politicians and the legislature are really blowing this out of proportion.
Yep.
But I agree with you, Tom. If we're going to do something with it, then rather than leave it there, so, nobody went out and looked at that stuff for the last 1,000 years. And if you leave it there, nobody's going to go out and look at it for the next 1,000 years. So if it has some intrinsic value, then why don't we collect it all, make some records of where we collected it, put it in a repository, catalog it, etc., let an archaeologist take a look at it, etc., instead of all of this hyperbole and virtue signaling that we're doing now that absolutely does no one any good except the grievance politicians who think, I'm really doing well. I'm doing well with the electorate because I'm talking about Chamorro and culture, and therefore every Chamorro is going to vote for me because I'm sticking up for Chamorros.
That's what I was saying the other day, that they're just politicizing this whole darn thing. And you were right. They just get up in the morning and they try to figure out what can I complain about today,
Yeah.
But why didn't they act this way when they were removing the remains down in Tumon when they were trying to build the Dusitani Hotel? They found some remains down there, and so they had to remove the remains and put them in the temporary repository until the new one gets completed at the University of Guam facility. And the same thing over on the highway just past Zonia when they found some remains there during the construction of that highway down the hill. They had to remove those because that's an ancient grave site. They removed the remains and they put them in a temporary repository. Why didn't they act this way when they found those remains down there? But when they find these remains, an artifact over in the military facility, they're just anti-military. That's all I got to say.
You're right, Tom.
Anti-military. They'll find anything to say against the military.
Yep. You're exactly right, Tom.
They're just using this as a political thing. I mean, like you said, they're going to be campaigning again. They're going to say, oh, I stood up for you. I tried to protect your culture and everything.
Mm-hmm.
If they're so worried about our culture, why in the hell did they legalize the recreational marijuana? Our ancient Samoans never knew that marijuana ever existed as a plant.
Here it is again. As far as economic impact, if it's bad, it's justifiable because we're protecting our culture, Tidegly said. So,
Oh, man, don't they realize that marijuana has nothing to do with our culture?
yeah.
And also, if they're so worried about protecting our culture, let's protect those artifacts. Let's get them out of the ground and put them in an air-conditioned repository and protect them.
Here's another one for you, Tom. You know, our governor is beating the bushes to find an abortionist to come to Guam. So, gifino tomorrow no ko tongo hafta mano masang ni palabran abortionist gifino tomorrow.
Oh, I don't know that.
Tisenya like sa tadsa palabra, because there was no abortion.
That's right, yeah.
In the prehistoric times. Okay, Tom. Well, thanks for calling up again and sharing your thoughts with us.
All right, buddy. A lot of these are just common sense that they're trying to do.
Common sense. You got it, Tom. Thanks again.
Okay, buddy.
So long. So that's our Tom. And let's see, our Carl on the line. Hello, our Carl.
Hey, Bob. Good afternoon.
Sir.
Yeah, it's been very interesting listening to the ongoing conversation on talk radio about this whole situation. And, the more I watch it, the more you just realize the whole purpose of this is not to pause. It is to shut it down. It is to halt it. I was listening to, or did I read about it, Senator Nelson talking about digging down 100 feet. And then in an interview I heard of Senator, what is her last name? Taitano. She's got that the name with a dash in it, and I keep forgetting. Marsh Taitano.
Marsha Kelly.
Yes, Marsha. Yeah, but she was mentioning that. Talking about the project and how long the delay would be, and she was inserting these comments into her dialogue. Like things like, as long as it takes, it's going to be a laborious process. It's really tricky, and really time consuming. So all these things are just hints that really what the intent is to shut down the project. And one thing I find really ironic is that they never consulted about this tree with the one on-island specialist that studies this rare tree and knows everything about it. And they never consulted with Dr. McConnell.
Yeah, well, he might have said something that didn't fit. Well, actually, he did say something that really doesn't fit in with their agenda at all. So why would they want to consult with him? They have their agenda. They don't need anybody else to help them with it, right?
Yeah, but their whole approach just shows that it's very. You can see what the agenda is, and it's very much the same anti-America, anti-military, anti-capitalism, anti-Western civilization attitudes that we see on the Western campuses. I mean, the U.S. campuses now. It's almost identical. I was listening to a program one time, and I heard a fellow Chamorro use the term white male patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just paused, and I looked at the radio. I was like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
I felt like I was on a college campus, So you can see that someone or someone is inserting these leftist, Marxist views into the local people's minds, and they're using these things such as the tree and the shards and all these various things related to the military buildup to build resentment among Chamorros and grow that resentment. And I believe it's to grow the separatist movement and use these things as leverage points to do that. And when the project was originally supposed to be in Pagat, my understanding is that it was a much larger troop amount. I think it was over 8,000, and it was a much larger footprint. They downsized it, and they cut down on the water usage required. I mean, they bent backwards. They bent themselves into pretzels, trying to get this done in a way that is as sensitive as possible. So they've bent every which way but loose, trying to do the right thing. They've paused, from what I understand, 9 times so far in trying to, be sensitive to the stuff they're finding and trying to get it resolved and continue on with the project. But it will never be enough. As you know, it'll never be enough.
Oh. No, the only thing would be enough. That would be enough if you packed every every person in the military on a ship and sailed them out of here tomorrow. That might be enough.
Yeah, the irony is there are so many projects in Tumon Bay where they found shards and skeletons and various things, because there was a village down there, all along that coastal area in Tumon. And Bob, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I heard a beep and I thought it might have been cut off. But you didn't hear this kind of desire to shut down projects. I mean, there was a pause. They extracted stuff from the ground. They boxed it, cataloged it, and then, displayed it. The difference is with the military project is that the military is the primary reason that America is on Guam. If they can succeed in driving out the military, that opens the door for many other things, such as you pointed out, a socialist government, that we see the cries for that in the mainland. The
Democracy. We could then have a democracy, a democratic popular utopia, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and in Venezuela, Hugo Chavez was democratically elected. That is a classical example of democratic socialism. He was a Marxist, and he was elected by the popular vote, and the rest is history. They're hunting, they're eating their own pets, they're cooking zoo animals, they're killing horses. Young people are hunting for cats to try and survive. And this is a country that in 1999 had the highest wages in South America, and it had, and it still has, the largest oil reserves in the entire world. So anyway, it's amazing. We just never seem to learn.
True enough, Carl.
All right, Bob. Thank you for allowing me a little time to rant there. I appreciate it.
Okay, Carl. Thanks for calling.
All right, bye.
Okay, so I got to finish up Demi Cotney here, and once again, it's no contest because the Daily News didn't have an editorial, and the Post had a very good editorial today. A really hard-hitting, tell it like it is editorial. Okay, so I go to the card, and the first item on the card is GVB versus the 7 Wonders of the World. Yeah, now you probably heard that term before, but let me elucidate a little bit. Maybe I'll just explain. There were 7 sites in the ancient world that were the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The only one that still survives is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Everybody's seen a picture of the pyramids, right? And there was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the statue of Zeus at Olympia, the Colossus of Rhodes, the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Those were the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And as far as the modern world is concerned, we have this, the Taj Mahal in India. You've seen a picture of that, Real Joe Cruz. Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil on top of Sugarloaf.
Yes, yes.
Petra, Jordan. The Great Wall of China.
Nice.
Yeah. The Colosseum of Rome. Yeah. Machu Picchu in Peru. And Chichen Itza in Mexico. That's the 7 wonders of the world.
You've been to all those places, right, Bob?
I haven't been to Chichen Itza, but I've been to the other 6.
I knew it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have. So, Here's the rub. I don't know who decides who goes on the list of the 7 wonders of the world, so I'm assuming that it's a self-propagating list. And they really screwed over us. You know, they made a really drastic omission. So there really should be 8 wonders of the world. You know what the 8th wonder of the world would be, real Joe Cruz?
Guam?
I'm going to tell you right after the heading down the home stretch.
Travel the world and then some with the 2 million United Miles sweepstakes from First Hawaiian Bank. Enter and you could win the grand prize of 1 million miles or be one of 6 other lucky winners. The world is big. Our prize is bigger. Enter at fhb.com/2 million miles. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Sweepstakes starts on May 1st and ends June 30th, 2019. Open to legal residents of Guam and CNMI. Ages 18 years or older. Visit 2millionmiles.com for official rules. First Hawaiian Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
GPSI Guam is a professional services company that is a registered contractor for the federal government. They're an SBA, 8A, and Hub Zone certified SDVOSB, providing program/project management, administration, technical support, logistics, and commodities. Find out more about GPSI and how they can help you today. For large prime companies, contact GPSI if you need assistance in meeting your small business subcontracting goals at 477-3058. They'll be happy to assist.
So here we are heading down the home as you were heading for starting over. The call of the post at Churchill Downs in Lexington, Kentucky. So here we are, the home stretch of Tall Tales. And before the break, I went through the 7 ancient wonders of the world. I've seen one of those, real Joe Cruz, the only one that's still around, the pyramids of Giza.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the 7 wonders of the modern world. But I really find fault because there really should be 8 wonders of the world. Taj Mahal, Christ the Redeemer in Brazil, Petra, Jordan, the Great Wall of China, the Colosseum in Rome, Machu Picchu, Peru, Chichen Itza in Mexico, and Magua pottery shards, Guam.
Nice.
Yeah, that's clearly one of the 8th wonders of the world.
I've been to Taj Mahal.
Good.
There's one in Mighty.
Yeah.
It's an apartment building.
Probably the same thing, right?
I think the Hemlanis own it.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
So they didn't, on the 7 wonders of the world, they did not include the Magua pottery shards. They're disrespecting Guam. You know, we need to do something about this. We need to send nasty letters to the people that kind of run the tourist industries at the other 7. But think of how great it would be if we were listed as the 8th wonder of the world, the Magua pottery shards on Guam. How many tourists would come to Guam just to see those millions and millions? I can tell you that, you know, the 7 that are in place, like you go to Machu Picchu, it's not an easy place to get to, but a lot of people do it. You got to take a train up to this village up in the mountains, and then you take a bus from there. But a lot of people do it because it's really something to see. I don't think it comes anywhere close, though, to the Magua pottery shards. So I think I probably need to talk to the Guam Visitors Bureau and to start capitalizing on that as part of our tourist, some of our tourist brochures, et cetera. We could take pictures of the limestone forest out there and of some of these pottery shards that have been discovered out there. The 8th wonder of the world. Okay, so much for that item on the card. And then the next item on the card is Creed governor versus the legislature. And what this involves is the legislature started out with their resolution that they adopted behind closed doors, saying they wanted that the construction stopped and then they backed off and said paused. And the only thing Lou Leon Guerrero has said is she wants to protect the tree, the fire tree that everybody's been talking about. So it's actually the legislature versus Lou Leon Guerrero, and I'm using the word treed, T-R-E-E-D, in a different sense than what you're used to. If we were coon hunting, Real Joe Cruz, instead of sitting here jabbering on the radio, we'd go out into the woods with our shotguns, and if a raccoon knew we were in the area, he probably would scramble up a tree, figuring he's safer up there.
That's when we'd have him treed.
We would have him treed.
Nice.
Yeah. So this one won't work here, but if you're, say, in Kentucky or Tennessee or someplace like that, and you let go with a really loud sneeze, achoo! That wise guy over there in the corner would say, oh, you got him treed yet? So in this particular case, the legislature has got Lou Leon Guerrero treed because they want a whole lot more than what she's talking about. And the independent Guam folks want even more than what the legislature wants. So Lou is definitely treed. She scrambled up that tree figuring she's going to be safe up there. But it doesn't look like she's going to be safe. I have a feeling that although you wouldn't think it could possibly be, if sitting on a branch in this tree, say 35 feet off the ground, that there could be a lot of pressure on you. And we know that our governor is very pressure averse. She does not care much for pressure. So I thought that I would try to ease her burden a little bit here today. And you know how Andrew's always coming up with these clever limericks? He even had a limerick about how to write a limerick.
Yeah.
He's had about 3 limericks about the Real Joe Cruz. I've talked to him about that, but
Yeah.
he keeps doing it.
They're good. They're good.
Yeah, well, I think he's back there behind the scenes trying to build up the cult of personality of the Real Joe Cruz. But I have a poem here. It was written by a man named Joyce Kilmer in 1917. Now, if it had been written by Joyce Kilmer in 2017, we wouldn't think anything of it. Oh, he's a tranny, right? But he wasn't. He was killed in World War I. He's a soldier killed in World War I, Joyce Kilmer. And this is a poem that he wrote called Trees. And I'm dedicating this to our governor, Lourdes Afligui Leon Guerrero. Here it goes. I think I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree, and only our governor can save a tree. If Kilmer had only known. Okay, so that wraps up another exciting edition of Tall Tales. We'll be back tomorrow talking about the issues, pointing out the disconnects like Vince said a little earlier. See you then.